I never believed I could find love again after the scandal, but the innkeeper changed everything. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air was heavy, thick with betrayal and shame. I stood there, heart racing, surrounded by whispers that sliced through me like cold knives. My heart felt like a stone in my chest, suffocating me. It all started when the truth came crashing down. I was caught in a lie that tore my life to shreds. My friends? They turned into strangers, their eyes filled with judgment, cruel and unforgiving. I was left with nothing but the echo of my own heartbeat in that empty room. I thought love was a distant memory, buried under the rubble of my shattered life. But that day, as I pushed open the creaking door of the Little Moon Inn, something shifted. The scent of wood smoke curled around me, wrapping me in a warm embrace. Felt like home. I had come to escape, to hide from the world that had rejected me. Instead, I found myself drawn to the innkeeper, his presence like a quiet storm. He had an old-world charm, a way of looking at me that made the shadows retreat. His deep-set eyes held secrets, stories untold. Something in me flickered. Hope? Was it possible? I wanted to feel again, to breathe without the weight of my past crushing me. As I settled into the worn leather chair by the fireplace, the flickering flames danced, illuminating his face, casting a spell around us. The inn was full of peculiar artifacts, an old clock ticking loudly, a collection of mismatched mugs that seemed to whisper tales from the past. Each item felt alive, filled with history and warmth. I could almost hear laughter echoing from the walls. "Why come here?" he asked softly, breaking the spell. I could see the curiosity etched on his face, but there was something else too, an understanding, like he too carried a weight on his shoulders. My stomach tightened. I couldn't tell him. Not now. Not yet. Suddenly, the door swung open, and a gust of cold wind rushed in. A shiver ran down my spine. I turned, expecting to see another traveler, but instead, the silhouette of a figure appeared. A wave of dread washed over me as recognition hit. It was someone from my past, someone I thought I had left behind. And in that moment, as my heart thundered in my chest and the room felt electrified, I realized that everything I thought was behind me was about to crash back in. Could I still find love, with my past looming over me like a storm cloud? Hey! Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The moment froze. Time seemed to slow as I locked eyes with the figure that had pushed through the door. There he stood, Gavin. A face I had seen too many times in the city streets. A face that had haunted my nightmares after everything had unraveled. All the color drained from my world, and for a heartbeat, I was back in that frantic place of disbelief. He stared back at me, confusion flickering across his features. I thought of bolting, of escaping to the safety of my room, but the innkeeper's steady gaze held me in place. "Is everything all right?" he asked, his voice a soothing balm amidst my growing panic. Gavin stepped further into the warmth of the inn, shaking off the cold like a dog emerging from a winter storm. My pulse quickened as he lingered by the hearth, eyes drifting between the innkeeper and me. The tension in the air thickened, wrapping around us like creeping ivy, threatening to choke everything in its grip. "I didn't expect to find you here," Gavin said, an unsettling grin pulling at his lips. There was a cockiness that grated against my frayed nerves. "Nice place you found. Does it matter to you?" I shot back, my voice sharper than I intended. I braced myself for his response, the embers of hurt flaring up, ready to force me into my shell again. Gavin's expression turned serious, and for a fleeting moment, he seemed almost vulnerable. "I just wanted to see after everything," he replied, gaze softening. "To see how you are. while the warmth from the fireplace seeped into my bones. An icy fear rattled beneath my exterior. I felt the innkeeper nearby, his silent presence urging me to stand my ground. I couldn't let Gavin's shadow consume me again. "I'm doing just fine," I said, straightening my posture, even as my heart battered against my ribs. "And you? Still lying and manipulating your way through life?" "Yeah. And what's so different about you?" he countered, his voice rising. "The last I saw, you were the one running away. You think this little escape can shield you from the truth?" I felt a burning retort rising within me. But just then, the innkeeper stepped forward, a calming force. "Perhaps we should let the lady enjoy her peace," he said quietly, his tone directing authority that made Gavin pause. "Excuse me?" Gavin shot back, incredulity flaring in his eyes. I could almost feel the tension vibrating, like taut strings on the verge of snapping. But the innkeeper, unwavering, squared his shoulders. "You've come here uninvited. If she wants space, you'd do well to respect that." Something shifted in the atmosphere, a subtle shift that unsettled the very foundations of our confrontation. Gavin's bravado faltered, and he seemed to realize the odds were no longer stacked in his favor. With a final disdainful glance at me, he turned to leave, the door slamming behind him like thunder, echoing my turbulent emotions that I in that silence that filled the space. The waves of dread began to recede, replaced by something more profound. I took a shaky breath, finally facing the innkeeper. His expression was a mixture of concern and something else, perhaps admiration. "Thank you," I stammered, bewildered by the unexpected warmth swelling in my chest. "I didn't expect." "Don't mention it," he said, a tender smile breaking the gravity of the moment. "Everyone deserves a safe space." As the crackling fire resumed its rhythmic song, I felt the shadows lifting, if only briefly. Perhaps this inn was a haven not just from my past but also a beginning that could reshape my future. Feeling unexpectedly found in that moment, I dared to reach out and grasp the worn leather of the chair beside me, wanting to bridge that tentative space between us. "What about you? Why do you run this place alone?" He hesitated, his eyes flickering away for a moment as if the answers resided in corners he hadn't explored in a while. "It's a long story," he replied softly, a shadow crossing his face. "But let's just say everyone has their reasons." The disappointment hardening inside me turned to curiosity and hopey a glimmer of possibility. "Maybe we can uncover each other's stories over time." His gaze held mine, the unspoken understanding threading between us like firelight that warmed me from within. I came to a realization that while my past was still a haunting specter, there might be space in my heart for new connections. But just as I thought I could step away from the edge of despair, the door creaked open again, this time more softly, a signal that brought my heart to a gallop once more. I held my breath, dread pooling in my stomach as a woman stepped across the threshold, her eyes wide with surprise. "Is this?" she stuttered, her focus landing on me with an intensity that was instantly recognizable. My heart sank as I recognized her. She was a journalist from that forgotten chapter of my life, the one who had chased the scandal like a moth to the flame. "What are you doing here?" I whispered, panic swirling inside me as the innkeeper's protective demeanor shifted into guarded concern. The net I thought I had successfully escaped was tightening all around me, and yet, amidst the chaos, there was something unyielding within. Could I really find love, or would my ghosts continue to haunt me, sabotaging whatever flicker of hope had ignited? The woman stood there, her presence warping the fragile peace I had only just begun to build. As she stepped closer, the innkeeper instinctively moved beside me, his body language brimming with a protective stance that I desperately needed. "Is this a bad time?" she asked, her voice wavering slightly as if she, too, sensed the tension charging the air. "What do you want?" I managed to say, every syllable grating against the rawness inside me. I could already feel my heartbeat rising, pushing back against the glimmer of safety I had just grasped. "I came searching for you." I thought she swallowed hard, her eyes darting between the innkeeper and me, searching for an opening. "I thought you might want to tell your side of the story." My laugh was bitter, the sound echoing against the stone walls, mingling with the crackling fire. "My side?" What makes you think I have any desire to revisit that horror? To lay bare my scars for you to pick at? She flinched, but there was a flicker of determination hardened in her gaze. I know what happened to you was brutal. I wrote what I thought was the truth, but since then, I've learned how misleading those articles can be. People only saw the sensational, not the person behind it. There was an intensity in her eyes that made my resolve waver. Have you come to tear me down even more? Or is it a redemption story you're after? Because I want no part of it. Please, she pressed, desperation spilling into her words. I want to help you. I've come to realize how a single story can distort a life. This isn't just about writing anymore. It's about acknowledging the truth. I thought you should know. The innkeeper shifted beside me, unwavering in his protection, yet I could sense the underlying question he hadn't voiced. Was it safe for me to confront my past? He cast me a sidelong glance, and in that moment, I saw not just concern but an invitation, a chance to reclaim my narrative. What's your angle? I finally asked, the suspicion still lingering, but curiosity gnawing at my resolve. What do you really want from me? I want nothing more than to show how the press can manipulate narrative to help you find your voice again, she said earnestly, the honesty in her tone threading a fragile hope through the fray of my feelings. You deserve to be seen as more than a victim. You deserve to tell your story, how you want it told. The magnitude of her offer sat heavily in the room, colliding with the protective barriers I'd built over the years. The very notion of revisiting my past raised pricklish fear, yet buried just beneath was an inkling of something else. The possibility of catharsis, of change. Still, before I could form a cohesive thought, an unexpected warmth emanated from the innkeeper as he spoke up. If you're serious about this, you're going to need to approach this delicately, and with her consent, of course. His eyes shone with an understanding that sparked something deep within me, a parallel love for the truth, however jagged it might be, and a yearning to present myself in this new light. You're willing to stand by me through this? I asked, scarcely able to articulate my surprise. Always, he replied softly, stepping even closer, the distance between us shrinking until warmth crackled in the space separating our hands. Before I could reflect on that surge of feelings, the woman interrupted, her voice trembling with a new urgency. Listen, I know this may not be the right time, but I received a tip regarding a follow-up on your case. Something that might provide clarity, something that could change everything. Someone has been waiting for you to respond. My mind raced at the implications of her words. What do you mean? I don't have the details, but they claim to have evidence that could prove the articles wrong, that there were key players hiding important truths. A rush of adrenaline surged through me, mingling with fear and an unexpected flicker of trepidation. Could it really be possible that my truth was worth unearthing? That someone else might also offer an olive branch? As I contemplated her revelation, the innkeeper stood beside me, offering an anchoring force against the whirlwind of possibilities. I had only just begun to venture into the warmth of this new existence, only just begun to safeguard my heart, and yet there it lay, an open invitation to dig deeper into the ruins of my past. What do you want me to do? I asked, my voice barely a whisper, hesitantly stepping toward the uncharted waters that loomed before me. Just think about it, she replied, her determination giving way to hesitation. You don't have to decide now. With that lingering uncertainty hanging in the air, the weight of her words felt both heavy and liberating, as if my past history finally had a chance to be rewritten. Yet, deep within, a storm still raged, calling into question whether I could ever truly emerge from the shadows, whether I was brave enough to even as the atmosphere thickened with unspoken truths. I could feel the fragile balance of hope teetering on the edge of a precipice. Just then, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket, a silencing jolt in the stillness, the screen lighting up with a name that made my breath catch in my throat. Gavin. I gasped in disbelief, a rush of conflicting emotions flooding through me. He was back, and whatever thread of security I believed I had found was now once again frayed. The phone continued to vibrate against my leg, each pulse sending jolts of anxiety through my body. Gavin. The name resonated within the hollow space of my heart, echoing both fear and a longing I thought I had buried for good. Memories of laughter, warmth, and the comforting weight of his hand in mine intertwined with the dark aftermath of betrayal and heartache. My breath hitched as I stared down at the message, and the world around me faded into a blur. "Oh, you want me to go?" The innkeeper's voice was gentle, a fragile thread connecting the reality of my current situation with the chaos that enveloped my thoughts. I don't know," I stammered, glancing up at him, seeking a flicker of support amidst the tumult brewing inside me. "It's complicated." The woman shifted anxiously, her bobbing head a reflection of my own spinning thoughts. "If it's too much right now, no," I managed to say, my resolve crystallizing against the uncertainty. I needed to confront Thisto, figure out once and for all where I stood with Gavin, regardless of whatever tempest had yet to be unleashed. I should answer. Before I could change my mind, I tapped on the screen, and the familiar voice poured through, laden with an urgency that cracked the facade I had worked hard to maintain. "Hey, it's me. Can we talk?" Gavin's tone was both tentative and desperate, tugging at the frayed edges of memories we had shared. "Now?" I asked, feeling the innkeeper's presence beside me, his warm strength grounding me as the emotional whirlwind spiraled into chaos. "Yeah, please. I need to explain everything." The determination that had briefly flickered in our earlier conversation with the woman now dimmed in its wake. I inhaled slowly, grounding myself in the moment even as uncertainty filled my chest with dread. "Where?" "The old cafe, our spot. They'll be waiting." Before I could respond, the line went dead, leaving me with thoughts racing faster than my heart. My hands trembled as I looked up, only to find both the innkeeper and the woman observing me. Concern etched into their features. "That I have to go," I finally confessed, the words feeling sticky on my tongue as I fought against the sudden swell of fear. The innkeeper's gaze softened, empathy glowing in his expressive eyes. "I can come with you if you want," he offered, his willingness wrapping around me like a warm blanket against the chill of the world outside. "Oh," I said with more force than I intended. "This is something I need to handle on my own." A part of me knew I had to stand tall in the face of this daunting confrontation, but another part wished for the safety of his presence as I faced the ghosts of my past. The woman watched me closely, her expression both apprehensive and understanding. "If you need something from me afterward, if you want to talk or process, just let me know." I nodded, feeling the grip of gratitude intertwining with trepidation. "Thank you." Seizing my coat from where it hung on the back of a chair, I hesitated for a moment, looking back at the innkeeper. "You'll be here?" "Always," he promised again, which only heightened the conflicting emotions already swirling inside me. With one last, lingering glance exchanged, I stepped onto the unyielding cobblestone streets, the night air biting sharply against my skin as I made my way toward the cafe. Each step felt heavier than the last, as the shadows of memories clawed at me, threading their way through the crisp night. Outside the cafe, under the same flickering streetlight where Gavin and I had shared laughter and dreams, I took a moment to breathe. The door swung open and my heartbeat quickened, a mixture of anticipation and dread filling the space around me. Inside, Gavin sat at our table just as I'd envisioned. Only this time the weight of unresolved emotions hung thicker in the air between us. He looked up as I approached, his face painted with emotions I couldn't quite decipher, but the sadness struck me most profoundly. "Thanks for coming," he said, his voice gravelly but gentle. "What do you want, Gavin?" My words cut through the tension, as I fought to keep my voice steady, summoning every ounce of conviction I had. "I came to explain I've missed you so much. I never wanted it to end like this." "Then how did it?" I challenged, feeling the walls I constructed and fortified tightening around my heart. "I was scared," he admitted, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "The scandal had spiraled out of control, and I let others convince me to walk away. So you ran?" I shot back, the bitterness bubbling to the surface as the hurt spilled from my lips. "You didn't even try to fight for us?" "I didn't know how. It felt like everything was crashing down, and thought you'd be better off without me. And instead, I ended up lost," I said softly, how his choices had rippled through my life, displacing me farther from the person I had once been. "You might not have cared, but I didn't forget about you. Not for a second." His eyes widened, guilt flooding his features. "I thought you'd moved on." I thought I had forced you to. I hadn't. But that doesn't matter now. We can't go back, I whispered, my resolve trembling as the weight of the past began to seep into the present. Just then, the bell above the door chimed, causing both of us to turn as someone entered. My breath caught in my throat as the figure stepped into the cafe. It was the woman from earlier, her expression shifting from surprise to something darker, as she surveyed the room, her eyes darting between us. Sorry to interrupt, she said, her tone laced with tension that twisted the air. But I think you need to hear what I found. Gavin and I exchanged a puzzled glance, the thread of anticipation weaving tightly in my chest. What do you mean? Gavin asked, his brow furrowing, about the tip I received earlier. She began, hesitating as if the weight of her news could alter the very fabric of the moment we were caught in. It's about someone connected to your case, and it might concern you both. As the words settled within me, the fragile world I thought I was beginning to understand shifted once again, and I felt the ground beneath me tremble as another cliffhanger loomed on the horizon, a truth that could shape everything I believed. The woman lingered in the doorway, casting a long shadow across the table. The tension felt like a tightly wound spring, ready to snap at any moment. My heart raced as I looked from her to Gavin, who appeared equally bewildered, 1,000 questions mirrored in his eyes. What do you know? I asked, my voice faltering as the air around us thickened. Pressing down on me like an impending storm, her mouth opened, then closed again as if struggling to find the right words. I didn't come here to cause trouble. Believe me, she said softly, but sometimes the truth has a way of unraveling everything you think you know. The tip I received it suggested that the backlash you faced, Gavin, was orchestrated. Someone wanted you out of the picture. Gavin's brow furrowed deeper. Confusion etched across his features. What do you mean orchestrated? By who? I don't know everything yet, but it's linked to the scandal that separated you two. There are whispers about more than just a simple fallout. Rumors that point toward someone who had everything to gain by splitting you apart, she replied, her eyes darting nervously as if the very mention of conspiracies could catch the attention of those who lurked in the shadows. The weight of her revelation brought a stillness that swallowed the cafe's ambience. Only the distant murmur of city life beyond the doors seemed to reach me. I felt the flicker of hope in the light of this revelation, fighting against the despair that had held my heart captive for too long. Why didn't you tell me this before? Gavin asked, his voice rising ever so slightly in a mix of frustration and bewilderment. I thought it was just gossip, until I received more concrete evidence. I didn't want to draw you into anything dangerous, but when I saw you together it felt wrong to keep it from you. The sincerity in her eyes sent an unexpected shiver up my spine, laced with a sense of urgency. I need to know everything, Gavin said, leaning forward, his gaze fixed on her. If someone did this to us, we can't just let it go. We need to dig deeper. I felt torn between the gripping desire to unravel this mystery and the ever-present shadows of our personal pain. The flicker of hope that had ignited in me faced an imminent battle with the ghosts of yesterday. I glanced at Gavin, our eyes meeting, and the silent, unexplainable connection we had always shared hovered in the air. Wait, I breathed, as another thought crashed into my mind like a wave. If this is true, what does it mean for us? Do we even know if we can trust anyone? It means we need to be cautious, Gavin warned, his voice suddenly taut. If someone is still pulling strings, we might be in more danger than we realize. The innkeeper's warm presence felt like a beacon of comfort outside the storm of uncertainty. I thought of his steadfastness, the kindness Head offered even when I felt most lost. He had been my anchor, guiding me through the shadows. And now, an unexpected ally had appeared in the form of this woman, her revelation casting a net of tangled possibilities over my heart. She began to explain more about what she had learned. I felt my attention linger on Gavin's profile, so close and yet still shrouded in a haze of betrayal and longing. Each word the woman spoke became a thread weaving our fates together. Yet an invisible chasm remained. How could we confront the past while we hovered on the precipice of a new enigma? I know this is a lot, she continued, her compassion cutting through the turmoil. But you both deserve the truth. It'll help you get the answers you need. We need to act before it's too late. My heart began to thrum, an unsteady beat within my chest. This was not the reunion I had anticipated. filled with closure and clarity. Instead, we were drawn back into a web of manipulation, and the deeper I waded into this newfound twist, the darker the waters became. "I won't let us be victims anymore," Gavin declared, determination igniting in his eyes. With that same flicker, I felt a tinge of hope course through me like a fragile ember. This battle was bigger than either of us longed for, but, perhaps, standing together would arm us with the strength to confront what lay ahead. Just then, the cafe door swung open once more, and a cold gust swept in. A figure dressed in dark, trench-like attire stepped inside. My breath hitched as recognition dawned. It was someone I had never expected to see again, someone who had walked hand in hand with the past I was trying to escape. "Gavin," the newcomer said, his voice smooth yet laced with an unsettling confidence. "I think it's time we talked about your little scandal, and whatever lies in the shadows around it. There's more to this story than you realize." Gavin's face fell as panic flickered momentarily, mirrored by the quickening cadence of my heart. The tension tightened once more, and as I glanced between them, I understood we had only scratched the surface of a much deeper conspiracy. The past threatened to swirl around us again, and we were once more caught in its merciless grip. As the figure approached, time seemed to freeze, filling the air with promise and dread. Would this unveiling shatter whatever fragile connection we had begun to rebuild? The weight of uncertainty settled heavy in my chest, and I felt the walls of my heart begin to quake once again. The air in the cafe thickened, a tumult of fear and recognition spiraling around us like shadows on the walls. My heart raced, pumping a rhythm of dread through my veins as the figure approached. Gavin's face paled, his resolve faltering as if a ghost from our shared past had emerged from the fog. The cafe had become our battleground, with every passing second amplifying the tension between the three of us. "Who are you?" Gavin demanded, his voice firm despite the tremor that betrayed his unease. I felt the pull of his fear and the intensity of his need to protect whatever vestige of peace we had begun to stitch back together. The man stopped before us, letting a slow smile unfurl across his facade was unsettling, a reminder of past friendships now tainted with doubt. "Oh, come now, Gavin. You really don't recognize me? This is almost charming." The laughter that followed was a cold echo against the warmth of the cafe. "But I suppose we have more pressing matters to discuss than pleasantries. Get to the point," Gavin snapped, a hint of desperation creeping into his voice. I watched as his fists clenched tightly, knuckles turning white against the table's surface. All around us, the ambient sounds of cafe life dulled, fading into a backdrop as the gravity of this moment deepened. My stomach churned uneasily. I remembered times not so long ago when trust had been breached, when loyalty had crumbled under the weight of betrayal. With a slight sideways glance, I sought solace in the innkeeper's presence behind the counter, a stalwart figure whose face remained unreadable, yet somehow sincere amidst the rising tide of apprehension. "There's been a great deal of misinformation, some of it engineered deliberately to separate you two," the man continued, his voice smooth like velvet intertwined with malice. "You don't have the full story, do you? Gavin, you were merely the first domino. I'm here to help, or, should I say, offer you a choice." Gavin shifted, embers of defiance sparking in his gaze. "What kind of choice?" "Your anonymity," the figure replied, leaning in closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "You can either continue this farce of an investigation with an innocent facade or embrace the truth about your past and reveal it to the world. The choice could spell disaster or deliverance." An icy shiver raced down my spine. I clutched the table's edge before me, fighting the uncomfortable wave of anxiety threatening to knock me off balance. The man seemed to relish the turmoil he had ignited, and with every passing second, I felt the walls close inward, mirroring the encroaching havoc my heart had endured since the beginning. "What do you gain from this?" Gavin asked, his voice unwavering though laced with caution. "Let's just say that sometimes the puppeteer has a vested interest in which strings to cut and which to pull. I simply thought you should know you aren't the only one seeking answers. All of this, it's intertwined with forces you cannot begin to comprehend." The weight of his words settled upon my chest like lead, and I risked a glance at Gavin. He had always been strong, his resolve unwavering, but for the first time, I saw uncertainty flicker beneath the surface. It scared me to witness his vulnerability. It reminded me that all the strength in the world could crack under pressure. "What do we do?" I whispered, anxiety thrumming in my voice. Gavin's gaze, fierce and protective, shifted to me, a flicker of hope mingling with the shadows of dread. "We stand our ground. This man may have answers, but we control our narrative. Courage won't shield you from the truth," the figure warned, his voice teetering on mockery. "But it might be worth a try, for you both." He turned, the corner of his mouth twisting upward, and I felt my pulse quicken with every deliberate step he took back from us. "Seek the innkeeper if you want further guidance. He knows more than he lets on." And with that, he slipped out into the street, the door closing behind him with a finality that echoed through the cafe, leaving us in stunned silence. I could almost taste the tension, like electricity sparking in the air. "What should we do?" Gavin finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," I admitted, feeling the crushing weight of uncertainty envelop us again. "But I'm not willing to let this man dictate our future. We decide who we want to be, together." Gavin nodded, the fiery determination returning to his gaze. "We find the innkeeper," he said with newfound resolve. But just as we prepared to rise, the cafe's phone rang, its incessant ringing shattering the lingering silence. The innkeeper swiftly picked up, his usual calm replaced with an unmistakable edge. "Hello?" A moment passed, then his expression shifted to one of alarm. "What do you mean? Are you sure?" I exchanged a glance with Gavin, the unspoken bond of concern thrumming between us. As the innkeeper's eyes darted toward us, realization struck. Something profoundly unsettling loomed over USA. New challenge had emerged like a dark cloud, blotting out the light of hope we had grasped. The innkeeper slammed the phone down, his hands shaking slightly as he looked at us. "You both need to leave. Now, they've found out you're getting too close." My breath caught in my throat, panic surging through me. The shadows were closing in, and we were teetering at the edge of an abyss darker than we had ever imagined. The threat had escalated, and our fragile scheme began to unravel as we stood on the precipice of an uncertain and treacherous journey. "Will you come with us?" Gavin asked, the urgency of the moment galvanizing the determination in his voice. The innkeeper shook his head slowly, pain etched across his features. "I can't. It's not safe for me, but you have to trust me. There's more at stake than you realize." With that, we hurtled into the unknown, hearts racing as shadows danced behind us, the path ahead shrouded in darkness and uncertainty. All we knew was that the storm was far from over, and it carried whispers of love, betrayal, and a desperate fight against fate that was only just beginning. My heart thudded in my chest as we burst through the cafe doors, the chill of the evening air enveloping us like a shroud. Gavin and I moved instinctively, hand in hand, tightening our grip as we walked into a world painted in twilight hues, one that felt alien and dangerous. The streets loomed around us, each shadow twisted and contorted, filled with fears both spoken and unspoken. "Where do we go?" I breathed, my voice barely rising above the whisper of wind. "What does the innkeeper know?" Gavin murmured, his brow furrowed in thought. "He must have seen the shitstorm coming before we did." I felt the warmth of our Connect Iona tether between the two of us amidst the rising tide of despair. "It doesn't matter right now," I said, the weight of the last hour pressing down on me. "We need to find shelter, somewhere safe." Our footsteps echoed on the cobbled streets, the meager glow of overhead lights struggling against the encroaching darkness. I yearned to turn back, to stay enveloped in the cafe's warmth, but we had torn ourselves away, thrust out into a chilling reality where danger loomed in every shadow. We navigated around a corner, and for a heartbeat, I gazed up at the night sky, hoping to find a glimpse of starlight, but the clouds above were heavy and ominous. As if in response to my yearning, the heavens churned in a velvet black, robbing me of hope. Little did I know that kindness was already on its way. As we plotted our next steps, a nearby alley caught my eye. "What about there?" I suggested, pointing hesitantly toward a narrow, dimly lit passageway. Gavin hesitated, worry lining his features. It looks desperate? I finished for him, my heart racing. We are desperate, Gavin. We need to hide, at least until just then. A figure emerged from the shadows, stepping into the sliver of light cast by a flickering street lamp. It was a woman, her features softened with worry yet dignified in presence. As she drew closer, I realized she was dressed in work clothes, apron still tied around her waist, and she held a small bag in her hands. She called softly, urgency lacing her tone. You two look like you're running from something real bad. Gavin instinctively stepped in front of me, a shield against whatever unseen threat lay ahead. We're fine, he said, his voice tinged with reluctance. But the woman wasn't deterred. And oh, you ain't? She insisted insistently, her eyes flaring with conviction. Come with me. I know a place. Her earnestness broke through our apprehension, and with a wary glance exchanged, we stepped toward her. What's your name? Gavin asked, trying to gauge her intentions. Lila, she replied, nodding. I run the bakery down the street. Late night specials, you know? Why do you want to help us? I found myself asking, my instinct rarely governed by blind faith. Lila drew a deep breath, her gaze unwavering. Because I've been where you are, she murmured, a shadow drifting over her features. I lost everything once, me family, my future. I'd give anything to help anyone else stay safe. In that brief exchange, we glimpsed a flicker of familiarity, a shared struggle that wrote its own painful narrative. We hesitated no longer and followed her into the alley, where she led us down winding paths until we reached a modest door, bathed in a cozy, inviting glow. Inside, her little sanctuary was a sharp contrast to the turmoil outside, shelves lined with baked goods, the sweet scent of bread and cinnamon wrapping around us like a warm hug. As Lila pulled out a chair for us, I felt my heart begin to thaw, just slightly, amid the chill of uncertainty. Sit. Drink some water. You look like you haven't had a moment to breathe, she insisted, pouring us 2 glasses from a glass pitcher that sparkled in the dim light. Thanks, I offered, my voice trembling as I grasped the cool glass, letting the weight of the water settle in my palm. Gavin followed suit, downing his rapidly, desperate for the sense of normalcy this tiny act provided. Lila, thank you for helping us, he said earnestly, but we can't drag you into this. It's dangerous. Too late for that, Lila replied with a resolute shrug, her demeanor unwavering. You're here, and I could not sleep knowing I turned my back on you too. I have my own scars, and I know how desperate it feels. No one should face the night alone. That I in her steady gaze, I found unexpected solace, perhaps even bravery. What did you mean when you said you'd lost everything? I probed carefully, seeking understanding. She sighed, her expression darkening briefly. Families are funny like that, you know? Takes one wrong turn, one bad decision, and things just shatter. You don't think it could happen to you until it does. I glanced at Gavin, who seemed pensive as he absorbed her words. What happened? He implored softly. Someone I trusted, a friend. I thought he had my back just like you do. But when the reality set in, he sold me out. The resignation in her voice sent a chill through the room. I lost my bakery when I tried to stand against him. Now I'm hoping to start fresh, but my past lingers like a shadow. Maybe we could do that too. I mused aloud, the slightest pang of hope sparking again. Start fresh, and face the truth together, Gavin added, his voice gaining strength as he met my gaze, determination swirling anew in his warm brown eyes. Lila's expression shifted, realization dawning. Don't let fear be your chains, she urged fervently. You must voice your truth. It's the only way to break free. The weight of her words stirred something deep within me. For a fleeting moment, with the sweet aroma of baked goods in the air, and the warmth radiating from our small group, I felt the fear beginning to recede. Perhaps, just perhaps, there was a thread of hope weaving itself into the fabric of our chaos. But as I took a breath, attempting to grasp hold of that hope, the tranquility shattered like fragile glass. A sudden crash echoed through the bakery, sending us leaping to our feet, hearts pounding in synchrony. With the strength of an avalanche, the door burst open, and a group of masked figures stormed in. Lila, one of them shouted, and my blood turned to ice. Where are they? I grasped Gavin's hand tighter, knowing deep within that danger had found us yet again. And this time, there was no way out. The room swallowed our collective breath. I could feel the fear radiating from Gavin, his grip like iron on my hand, an instinctive reflex to shield us both. My heart raced, pounding against my ribcage like a caged bird desperate to flee. Lila stood frozen, a stark contrast to the chaos that had just erupted. The masked figures scanned the bakery with sharp eyes, searching, and I could feel their intent hanging thick in the air. Time seemed to stretch endlessly, a taut string ready to snap. I desperately searched Lilith's eyes for some kind of reassurance, but all I saw reflected back was a woman grappling with her past once again. "Get behind the counter," she hissed under her breath, urgency underlying her command. Without thinking, I pulled Gavin with me, ducking low behind the sturdy wooden counter that had stood here long enough to witness countless stories unfold, some joyful, some tragic. My mind raced what would happen next. We had just begun to taste a fragment of safety. Yet now, it felt like an echo, fading away. "That I am not hiding," Lila declared defiantly, stepping forward, the pride and strength I'd come to admire in her boiling to the surface. "What do you want?" The tallest figure lowered his head slightly, the mask obscuring his expression but not the menace in his voice. "You know why we're here, Lila. Hand over the boy and girl and it'll be over. You can go back to your little bakery and pretend like nothing happened." "Never!" she exclaimed, her voice steady. I could see the fire burning in her resolve even as fear washed over me. She was risking everything to protect us, a stranger bound by shared sorrow and understanding, even as I struggled against the tightening grip of dread in my throat. Gavin squeezed my hand again, this time tighter still, as if to say that we were in this together. His warmth ignited a flicker of courage within me, though it was but a fragile flame, teetering on the precipice of despair. "What if we just walk away?" Gavin proposed loudly, his voice even. "You don't have to hurt anyone. We won't fight back." The masked figures exchanged glances, uncertainty creeping into their ranks, albeit slowly. "You think you can just slip through our fingers?" The leader scoffed, taking a step closer, his tone dripping with disbelief. "This isn't worth it," Lila interjected, a tremor in her voice simmering just below the surface. "They're just kids. Take whatever you want from here. We won't say a word." But the more she pleaded, the more the tension escalated. My mind raced with potential escape routes, but none materialized as panic clawed up my throat. For a brief moment, I felt small and powerless, trapped in my own narrative. Then something happened. A flicker of movement caught my eye. A familiar figure emerged from the shadows at the back of the bakery. Old Man Reed, the town's beloved watchman, had crept in unnoticed, his presence like a breath of fresh air amidst the choking fear. "Leave them be, boys," he barked, voice steady despite the tremor of age. "You know better than to mess around in Lilith's place. They have nothing to do with your past mistakes," he continued, taking a step forward. I could see the weariness etched in his face, but also an unwavering strength. "You think terror is power? You'll just wind up chasing shadows until there's none left of you." Before I could process his brave words, chaos erupted once more. The masked figures shifted, their attention divided now between Lila and Old Man Reed. Gavin nudged me, and we exchanged a glance. The unspoken understanding was clear. Time to act. We bolted from behind the counter, sprinting towards a nearby door that led to the back alley. The sound of chaos behind us erupted as Lila shouted for us to run. We barreled through the door, adrenaline pulsing through my veins. But as we stepped out into the night air, freedom tasted bittersweet. "Over here," I whispered urgently to Gavin, urging him towards a narrow path that meandered through stacked crates. My heart raced, the adrenaline fueling my steps. But with every step onward, doubt crept in. Would Lila be okay? Would Old Man Reed stand against the masked figures alone? We darted through an open side street, the unfamiliar sounds of murmurs echoing in the air, mingling with our gasps for breath. The darkness hugged us tightly, and every flicker of movement had us turning to look, to check for danger lurking around the next corner. "I think we lost them," Gavin panted, scanning our surroundings. "But we can't stop now. I nodded, but deep within, I felt a growing uncertainty. Do you think Lila will be all right? I hope so. She's strong, he noted, but his voice lacked conviction. Hope dwindled like a flickering candle, as the uncertainty of our safety swallowed us whole. With every pounding heartbeat, a gnawing dread manifested in my gut, a possibility that lingered in the periphery of my thoughts. What if this was the last time we ever saw her? We made our way deeper into the labyrinth of streets, each bend leading us further away from the bakery and the warmth of Lilith's bravery. Just as despair threatened to overwhelm me, we rounded a corner and collided with someone. I stumbled back, but Gavin steadied me. My eyes widened as I stared into the face of a man dressed sharply in a tailored coat, an expression of surprise playing across his features. "I've been looking for you," he said, his voice smooth yet urgent. "We don't have much time. You're in danger." A wave of confusion crashed over me. "Who are you?" I demanded, instinctively stepping closer to Gavin, a shield against another unknown. "The one who can help," he replied, his eyes darting behind us. "Come with me, quickly." A rush of uncertainty washed over me, but the gravity of his words pressed against me like a weight, urging me to decide. With the night closing in and danger still on our heels, I found myself faced with a choice. Trust a stranger with the hope of salvation or continue to run deeper into the unknown. "Gavin," I whispered, my heart heavy with the looming uncertainty that awaited us. Before he could respond, the distant sound of sirens filled the air, amplifying the urgency of the moment. The tangled threads of fate spun tighter, leaving us at a crossroads. "Now or never," the man urged, piercing through the tension with a promise that felt oddly like hope. I took a breath, gazing into Gavin's eyes, searching for an answer among the fear. In that heartbeat, I realized that I had no choice but to leap into the unknown because holding on to fear offered nothing but a hollow echo of despair. With a nod, I took one step forward, and with it, a leap into the unknown, a path that could either lead us to safety or deeper into darkness, where love and truth could just as easily break or bind us all. With my heart racing like a drum, I took a tentative step towards the stranger as Gavin hesitated beside me, caught in the whirlwind of uncertainty swirling around us. The man gestured for us to follow, his eyes scanning the street as if searching for ghosts among the shadows that wrapped around us. "Please," he urged softly, a veneer of urgency cloaked in calm. "There's no time to waste." I drafted in a quick breath, weighing my options. We had just fled from absolute chaos and fear, yet here we stood at yet another precipice of uncertainty, a chance for action or a leap into the unknown. The sirens blaring in the distance felt like wolves howling in a forest of gloom. "It's okay. We can trust him, right?" Gavin's voice trembled, breaking the grasp of silence, the boyish innocence behind those words stark against the backdrop of our turmoil. "Can we?" I blurted, glancing back, half expecting to see masked figures bursting into our sanctuary of dwindling safety. "What if he's working with them?" "I know it feels risky, but we need help," Gavin said, his voice steadying just slightly, a flicker of hope lighting his features. I gravitated towards that spark, letting it buoy me upward amid the tumult below. The man frowned but nodded patiently. "I understand your hesitation, but I assure you, I hold no ill intent. My name is Elias. I've watched over both of you from a distance. I've seen things." He paused, his brow tightening, a shadow of regret flickering across his face. "I understand pain, child. Trust me." The words resonated deep within me, pulling threads of recognition from my own jagged tapestry of hurt. Lila had once stepped into the void for me, risking everything without hesitation. Yet now I found myself unable to immediately reciprocate that faith. With an almost imperceptible sigh, Gavin grabbed my hand, squeezing it tightly enough to remind me we were still in this together. I took another breath, committing to the moment, and glanced at Elias. "Okay," I squeaked, feeling the weight of inevitability crushing against me with the current of the night. "Show us." Elias led us through the narrow streets, casting furtive glances behind us. The sirens grew louder, weaving through the labyrinth of alleyways, proof of a world dancing on the edge of chaos. My heartbeat synced with the rhythm of police lights flashing against brick walls, painting everything in uncertain hues of red and blue. After a few turns, he led us to the back entrance of a small, dimly lit building. Almost like an odd sanctuary juxtaposed against the chaos outside. It had an old-world charm, a promise of stillness, where our hearts could find momentary peace. Once inside, Elias closed the door behind us, casting the worried world out into the streets. The interior was cozy yet worn, an ambience akin to an old library filled with stories yet to be told. A glimmering chandelier swung gently from the ceiling, the light casting gentle halos across the walls lined with books. Elias motioned for us to sit at a small round table adorned with a faded tablecloth. "I'll get you something warm to drink," he said, stepping away into an adjoining room while we remained cloistered in disbelief and apprehension. I glanced at Gavin, who seemed less rattled than I felt. Hope sprang anew within me, like a fragile bloom pushing through winter's frost. "What if this is it?" he whispered, uncertainties threading through his voice. "What if we can finally be safe?" My heart clutched painfully around that possibility, and I leaned closer, staring into his earnest eyes. "Whatever happens, we'll face it together. Okay?" Just as I felt a semblance of hope knit itself into the frayed edges of my being, Elias returned, 2 steaming mugs of dark liquid in hand. "Hot chocolate. Comfort needed," he said, a flicker of kindness softening the lines of worry etched into his face. We thanked him, the warmth drawing us back from the abyss we'd fled. But just as we took our first sips, the ground seemed to shake beneath our feet, a rumble that felt less like the wrath of nature and more like an echo of what we had just escaped. "As that?" Gavin started, lowering the mug, his face slackening with fear. I felt it too. The trepidation nestled itself deeper in my bones. Before I could respond, Elias' phone buzzed insistently on the table, the screen lighting up with urgency. He held up a finger, silencing us. "Stay here," he ordered sternly, stepping away once more. Just a moment as he went to answer the call. Gavin leaned closer, eyes wide. "Do you think it's them?" "I don't know," I replied, anxiety gnawing at me anew. What if we hadn't escaped? What if we'd only traded one kind of danger for another? Elias' voice carried through the doorway, tense and heightened. His response murky but unmistakably filled with dread. I felt the wind of panic swirl in the pit of my stomach. Whatever was happening had shifted again. The ground beneath us pulsed with a new kind of darkness. Suddenly, Elias rushed back into the room, his face pale as he took in our expressions. "We need to go," he commanded, breathless. "What's happening?" I asked, confusion and fear melding as I stood frozen. "There's a breach. They found us," he said urgently. "We can't stay here. I need you to trust me. I have another way out." Terror struck a blow deep within me. My thoughts were a tempest of worry for Lila, echoing low voices that reminded me of burdens I'd yet to carry. I'd craved safety, but was I prepared to plunge into further unknowns? Gavin's grip tightened around my hand, panic evident in his eyes. "We have to go, right? We can't just leave her." But before I could respond, the door crashed open, the night spilling in, carrying with it dread and sinister shadows. Figures loomed in the doorway, their intent unmistakably malevolent. "Come with us," or one of them called, the words dripping with malice. Elias stepped protectively in front of us, shoulders squared, just as fear clawed at the edges of every dimension of our reality. My heart raced anew, the room closing in as desperation gripped me. Would we fight, or would we flee again? "Run!" Elias shouted, his voice the anchor amidst the storm. Without a conscious thought, I surged forward, dragging Gavin along as our hearts screamed for survival. We darted through the back exit head shown us earlier, hoping against hope that the light of dawn would make everything feel brighter, but within those values lay a new truth unsteady as the ground shifted beneath our feet. As fear propelled us through the labyrinth of narrow streets, I cast a glance over my shoulder, my heart aching for the sacrifice Elias might make to shield us. "Please let this not be the end," I whispered into the night, resolved anew that love, cherished or forgotten, would guide us through the shadows that swirled at our heels. The night chased us like a relentless shadow, our hearts pounding to the rhythm of urgency. We sprinted through the winding back streets, a chorus of chaos echoing in our ears. Everything that had occurred over the past few days crashed down on me, a will spinning wildly out of control. Just when I thought I had found a sanctuary, safety had vanished, slipping through my fingers like grains of sand. Gavin and I turned another corner, the dim streetlights casting long shadows that flickered in the cold night air. It was as if the very city conspired against us, its streets steeped in old secrets and untold stories. Anxiety gnawed at my insides, each breath drawing in the weight of what lay behind us: the bakery, Lila, Elias. I couldn't shake the feeling of abandonment, fear closing in like a vice around my chest. "Where do we go?" Gavin gasped beside me, his determination flickering as exhaustion began to creep in. "Anywhere but here." My voice was strained, tinged with an urgency that belied my own fear. The sirens we had heard earlier pierced through the night, a sound that had once invoked dread now ignited a fierce need for resolution. What if we went back, looked for Lila? "Are you crazy? They'll just be waiting for us." Gavin shook his head, eyes wide as he searched mine for clarity. I could feel the pull of my heart soaring toward hope. Yet the fear was too great, a fog that clouded my vision of what lay ahead. "But she helped us. We owe her. You can't save everyone," he shouted unexpectedly, frustration erupting like a storm. "Not while we can barely save ourselves." His words hung heavy in the air, striking a painful chord in me. I felt the anger swell, pushing against the thick layers of vulnerability that had enveloped me since the scandal fractured my life. It felt so unfair, to have everything layered in shades of gray when all I wanted was clarity. But perhaps there was a different perspective to consider. Perhaps we needed to preserve our strength, not pour it into an uncertain future, while the past loomed over us with haunting reminders of betrayal. As we navigated through the tangled streets, I recalled the innkeeper's words: everyone had a story worth sharing, and mine was painfully intertwined with Gavin's. "Maybe we do run, but we also fight," I whispered, resolving to believe that protection would find a way to collide with courage. "We need to consolidate our efforts and find out who's been pulling the strings. Reach out to people who can help." He hesitated, the determination in his gaze softening, a flicker of light igniting within the snug darkness of despair. "You mean gather those allies?" Yes. If we could just reach Lila or even find Elias, maybe we can understand what's really going on," I urged, the possibility igniting something within me like a rushing tide. Gavin's breath deepened, uncertainty mingling with newfound courage. "Then we need a plan." Together, our minds whirled with the threads of a plan, strategies that stretched into the horizon of possibilities. I felt the air shift between us, the weight of mutual understanding weaving tighter into the fabric of our connection. It was as if our hearts synchronized not just in beat, but in purpose. We were forged from shards of our past, ready to confront the storm awaiting on the horizon. We pushed forward, fueled by a burgeoning hope, our feet moving purposefully beneath the swirling shroud of night. Just as I felt a new strength fill my veins, a loud crashing sound echoed from behind us. A sharp tang of adrenaline pierced through my otherwise calm demeanor. "Run," Gavin whispered urgently, his grip tightening around my hand. "No," I shouted, turning to face the sound. A figure emerged from the darkness, a shadow that had not yet come fully into focus, but I could feel the threat radiating off him in waves. "We can't just leave now," Gavin insisted, his heart pounding in his voice as he pulled me forward. But I could feel my feet rooted in place, my heart wavering between the instinct to flee and the urgency of connection. My mind raced with the fragmented thoughts of Elias, Lila, and the darkness we'd just escaped. Perhaps there was something still waiting, some semblance of hope lingering amid the chaos. Just as I prepared to turn back, I heard a voice call out, tinged with the gravitas of a familiar resonance. "You too. Stop." It was a call echoed by a familiar command. As the figure stepped into the light, my breath caught in my throat. Standing before us was someone I had not expected to see, a flicker of recognition sparking a mixture of surprise and hope. It was the innkeeper, the very man whose quiet strength had been the lodestar in my storm. "Gavin, get back," he shouted, urgency stark in his voice as he moved toward us, shielding us from whatever danger approached. In that moment, my heart surged, a mix of relief and awakening possibility, lighting the way through the clouds of despair. "You found us," I breathed, tears pricking the edges of my vision as I grasped the weight of his presence. "Of course I did. I live in a world of shadows," he murmured, shifting his gaze between us. "But it's time to shed light on this conspiracy. Together." The relief of solidarity surged through me, empowering my response. "You have answers? Enough to understand what we're up against." With a faint nod, he motioned for us to follow, urgency still coloring his every movement. As we ran alongside him, the night stretched infinitely, but I held onto the warmth radiating between us, a tether anchoring my heart amidst the swirling chaos. "Whatever lies behind us, we will expose it," I vowed, my voice resolute. Gavin's grip on my hand tightened, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I felt a glimmer of hope blooming again, the promise of a reunion forged not just from love, but from the strength of truth. We chased light and connection into the dark, ready to face whatever storm lay ahead, because this time we would not crumble with our steps thunderous against the cobblestone. We prepared to confront whatever awaited us, knowing that together, we could always find our way home. And in the heart of turmoil, I whispered a silent vow. We would rewrite our story not just for ourselves, but for all the lost pieces yet to be mended. And in the end, love wasn't a race. It was a journey, and we were just beginning to unravel its deepest truths.